Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to cut through all the noise you hear at the gym, all the bro science, and get right to the real facts behind what actually works for performance, nutrition, and recovery. All right, let's dive right into some of that common fitness wisdom, starting with a huge one, sugar. You hear it all the time, right? Good sugars, bad sugars. But what's the real story when it comes to fueling your body? And what about this one? Training on an empty stomach. I'm sure you've heard about fasted cardio for fat loss, but does that same idea really work for strength training? Are you actually getting a better workout by skipping breakfast? And then you've got the whole no days off mentality, that whole go hard or go home thing. We're going to look at whether training more and more and more always leads to more gains, or if there's a smarter way to do things. And finally, let's talk about cramps, that sudden, awful, seizing muscle pain. Is the fix really as simple as just drinking more water? Well, today we're putting all of these common beliefs to the test with cold, hard science. First up, let's get into the great sugar debate. It is probably the most controversial carbohydrate out there. We need it for fuel, right? But we also hear it's terrible for us. So which is it? Is it our fuel or our foe? Okay, so here's the absolute key. We have to draw a line between sugars you find naturally in whole foods, like, say, an apple, and the added sugars that get dumped into stuff like soda and candy during manufacturing. You see, natural sugars come bundled with awesome things like fiber, vitamins, and water. Added sugars, not so much. They're what we call empty calories. And as we're about to see, they can be pretty harmful. And when I say harmful, I mean it. Check this out. The risk linked to those added sugars is absolutely massive. A major analysis of health data found a staggering 38% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease for people who get between 17 and 21% of their daily calories from added sugar. That's huge. And it doesn't stop with your heart. The evidence keeps piling up, linking too much added sugar to a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, messing with your cholesterol levels, and even causing high blood pressure. So the verdict is pretty clear. It's not just about sugar, it's about where that sugar comes from. So we know the type of fuel matters, but what about the timing? Let's talk about fueling up for exercise, especially those morning workouts. Is it really better to train on an empty stomach, or should you be having a pre-workout meal? To figure this out, scientists put it to the test. They took a group of guys who were experienced lifters and had them do back squats and bench presses. They did it once after eating a high-carb breakfast and another time after fasting with just water. And you can see right here, the results for the back squat were, well, they speak for themselves. The breakfast group had a serious advantage. And the numbers really drive it home. The men who skipped breakfast did 15% fewer total reps on the back squat. They also performed 6% worse on the bench press. I mean, think about that. That is a major drop in performance just because they skipped one meal. The researchers' conclusion was super direct. They basically said, if you want to perform at your best, you should eat a breakfast high in carbs. So why is that? Well, heavy lifting runs on fuel called glycogen that's stored in your muscles. And when you fast overnight, you use up a lot of those stores. Eating breakfast is like topping off your tank before a long drive. Okay, so fueling properly is a huge piece of the puzzle. But what about the training itself? Does that no days off mantra that you see all over social media actually get you the best results, or could it actually be holding you back? This brings us to a concept that might sound completely backward, but trust me, it's backed by some solid science. It's called tapering. It's this idea that strategically doing less work can actually make you perform better. Now, tapering isn't just taking random time off or being lazy. Nope. It is a deliberate, carefully planned reduction in your overall training workload. It's designed to give your whole system, your muscles, your nerves, a chance to fully recover, repair, and super compensate. And that can lead to some pretty amazing gains in strength and power. So, how do you actually do it? Well, a typical taper lasts about 1 to 2 weeks. During that time, you're going to slash your training volume, so the total number of sets and reps you do, by about 30 to 40%. And this is the really critical part, you keep the intensity high. You're still lifting heavy in that 60 to 85% range of your 1-rep max. This lets you get rid of all that built-up fatigue without losing the strength you've worked so hard for. All right, last one. Let's tackle one of the absolute worst things that can happen during exercise: muscle cramps. We've all been there, right? And for years, we've been told, drink more water or eat a banana for potassium. But is that really the whole story? For decades, the go-to explanation for cramps was dehydration or losing electrolytes through sweat. It made sense. But you know what? The scientific consensus is actually shifting in a big way. The latest research points to a totally different culprit. It's not your hydration, it's your nervous system. The theory now is that cramps are a neuromuscular issue. Think of it like this. As a muscle gets really tired, the nerve signals going back and forth to your spinal cord get all jumbled up. The signals telling your muscle to contract, the go signals, start screaming way too loud, and they overpower the signals telling your muscle to relax, the stop signals. The result? A massive involuntary muscle contraction that we call a cramp. So, we've busted 4 pretty big myths here. After all that, what does it mean for you and your fitness goals? What's the big picture lesson? You know, the big theme running through all of this is that peak performance comes from training smarter, not just harder. It means knowing the difference between good fuel and garbage, actually fueling up before you train, using rest as a weapon to get stronger, and realizing that a cramp is your body screaming, "I'm tired," not just "I'm thirsty." This knowledge is power, right? It lets you look at your training, your food, and your recovery in a whole new way. So I have to ask, after hearing all this, what's the one smart change you're going to make to your routine? Maybe it's planning that breakfast, or scheduling a taper week, or just being a little more careful reading those nutrition labels. Hey, if you found this explainer helpful, it would be awesome if you could like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. And let us know in the comments if there's a specific topic you want us to break down next.